Hello and welcome back to the Bourgeois Gentleman's Reading Room. I'm Ray. I'm alone today, which is honestly a little bit awkward because it just feels like I'm talking to myself. No, I don't really miss you, Shaolin, but you do have your uses. Anyway, so last segment we were talking about DC and their movies and the bad idea that it is and how it feels like they are the little brother in the comic book industry, which is weird because they've been around longer, their characters are older, even the characters they bought from Carlton are older. But you know what? That happens. You win some, you lose some. Winning, to some extent, was Comic-Con, which took place 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 3. The days, they all blur, especially when you're drinking. Anyway, got to go. A little disappointed with the purchasing of tickets. That process was a disaster. I'm going to have to figure out a better way of getting my tickets because I am all about the special access passes and thought I'd be able to get some again this year and somehow managed to not get them. I did get a 4-day pass. It was awesome. Thursdays and Sundays are always pretty good days. Not because any news or anything is dropped, just the crowds are not as insane. Saturday was jam-packed. Friday was probably a debacle for me. It's probably one of the worst days I've ever had at Comic-Con since they've been around. I managed to somehow not get into any panel I wanted to get into. I also managed to not get into any signing I wanted to get into. But what I did manage to do, and particularly on Thursday, and this is why I highly recommend it if you get the chance, is Thursdays and Sundays are not nearly as crowded. And one of the best things about New York Comic Con is Artist Alley. It's a completely separate little venue, still in the Javits Center, but it's off to the side. And the way it's situated, it gives you an opportunity to really, truly, genuinely interact with the artists who are there. You get to find great artists who aren't working on anything in particular. They just do, they're just doing artwork and they're just showing it there. Some guys have books, some guys don't. But at the end of the day, you get to really interact with the creators of some of your favorite stuff, and you get to find new creators. I remember, I guess, it'd have to be probably 5 years now, maybe even longer. But I got to meet this interesting fellow by the name of Cliff Chiang, and he did this wonderful Wonder Woman piece. And if you're not familiar with Cliff Chiang, he's the artist. I think he's a co-writer of Wonder Woman right now. And I love his stuff. I love that he just sort of got started in sort of editorial and just started doing things and ended up, drawing a really cool book and writing a book. I got this piece at Comic-Con. It was great. One of the great things about Cliff Chiang's art and his prints that he sells, he does them on a very high-grade stock. His signature's embossed, and he will sign it as well for you. And they frame really nicely. So got this framed up. I'm going to hang that up and look at it every day, just like I do many other pieces of his. But I have this one up in particular because it's Wonder Woman. Well, I have it up mostly because it's framed and it's awesome. But I also have it up because it's Wonder Woman, and as I was stating in the previous segment, she is the second movie coming out from DC. 2017, Gail Gadot, the really hot chick from Fast and Furious. Let's just leave it at that. A lot of people didn't like that choosing. I thought it was great. I thought she looked the part-ish. Would have been great if she was just a little bit huskier. Only because Wonder Woman's supposed to be Amazonian. She's supposed to be a warrior princess. She needed a little bit more meat on her bones. But from all the images I've seen, she fits the bill, and it's a fantastic casting. Again, I don't think they're doing her a great, service by sort of shoehorning her into Batman versus Superman. And I think they're only setting her up for failure. but I hope that that doesn't affect the sales of the book, which is doing pretty well, and that Cliff Chiang is still pretty much killing it on. Hopefully he'll stick on it, because I love his take on Wonder Woman. I love his simple use of colors. And if you get a chance, one of the great things about, as I said, about Artist Alley is you get to interact with them. Part of the reason I buy something from Cliff Chiang every year is when I first met him, and like I said, I guess it was about 5 years ago that they made Artist Alley. He was one of the few artists, I guess they didn't know how to interact with it or how to handle it, but he was one of the first people to just be nice to me. And he was really, he sat and he talked with you, he let you go through his stuff, and it was like talking to another fanboy, but not in a completely I've never left my mom's basement sort of way. And that's the beauty of Artist Alley nowadays, is you can run into people. I actually, I have this now, I think, NYCC tradition where I stalk Becky Cloonan, who I love. I love Becky Cloonan. As a matter of fact, next week she's going to be on the show. We're just working out the travel arrangements. I'm just waiting for her to get back to me with her plane information. But she is one of my favorite artists. But on top of that, she is a very talented writer, and she self-published. She self-published, 3 or 4 books. She actually self-published a compilation of that, which is By Chance or Providence. And I highly recommend it. If you get a chance, go online, look it up, By Chance or Providence, and by Becky Cloonan, and it's fantastic. It's wonderfully moody. If you also get a chance, check out the work she did on Batman Black and White, I believe issue number 6. The story that she illustrated was phenomenal. She conveys so much emotion in all of her panels. It's just, I can't rave enough about her, but it's become a tradition where now, like, I just sort of follow her around and awkwardly try and ask her to take a picture with me. And it almost always turns into a debacle, but it's what happens. But the great thing is this year she wasn't deathly ill, and she wasn't freaked out by the strange black guy following her. And this year when I caught her, she was actually at Cliff Chiang's booth, and I got to take a picture with her, and we sat for, I think, 15 or 20 minutes and just had a random conversation about wacky French Canadians. That's the beauty of Artist Alley, and that's one of the beautiful things about NYCC. Also, I got a chance to meet Cameron Stewart, and I didn't have my copy of, the New 52 Batgirl number 35 or whatever, and I had nothing to sign, so I just bought this, did some random doodle, and it's awful. But I redrew this little character. It's not a little character, it's actually him. And he posted on Instagram, he posted on Tumblr, I think, and it's just these little 4-panel stories that he does, similar to what Becky Cloonan does. If you get a chance, follow both of them on Instagram and Tumblr. It's a great follow. And Twitter as well. But he actually tried to take my book from me, which was weird, because I was like, I didn't do this for you. It's a little doodle of me and says, "Hey, aren't you Cameron Stewart?" And he says, "Why, yes, and he was supposed to put, sign in the box, Cameron Stewart, but he didn't. He signed it at the bottom, but he actually tried to take it from me. And what's great is that, he ended up asking me my name. I wasn't just some guy in a line, and we ended up having a conversation just about drawing for a good 5 or 10 minutes. Sorry to everybody who was in the Saturday line for the Batgirl signing. I'm sorry it took so long. That's my bad. But what's awesome is you get to have these experiences and get to have these interactions. Also, I got to talk to Amy Reeder and Brandon Montclair, who also have a podcast. It's called Podcorn, and I listened to it. It's an interesting little listen, and they did another self-published thing, Rocket Girl, and it's an awesome book. I got to pick up the hardcover trade. I have all 6 issues, I believe. I think it's 6 so far. I have all 6 issues in individual issues. Really good book. I highly recommend it. But that was actually one of the highlights of the convention, was sitting and getting to talk to Brandon Montclair. I'd love to sit and talk about how great Comic-Con is. I mean, it's a convention. If you've been to one convention, you've been to a mall. It just sort of varies on scale. And let's face it, the Javits Center is a pretty big building. No, it's not like in some Ramada Inn in Parsippany or something. It's, it's big. They've got panels. News is announced. Most everyone is usually there. Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Vertigo, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, the show floor is basically the show floor. Again, if you've been to one, you've been to them all. But the little things that differentiate it are, like I said, just New York City in general, and mostly Artist Alley. I've been to a lot of cons in my life. You don't usually get that sort of that separation and that opportunity to sort of interact with people. And Amy Reeder is super polite. I believe she might at one point have been a Mormon. If that's a lie, I'm sorry, Amy, or Miss Reeder if you're nasty. But I know she's from sort of that little area, and she's super nice, and she'll sit and talk to you about pretty much anything. Brandon Montclair as well. Sat and actually talked to me all about Rocket Girl, and talked to me about a previous thing that they did, which was Halloween Eve. And again, you get these chances, you get these opportunities, and even though there's lines, they try and take that time to talk to everybody. There's lots of independent artists there. There's also chances to show your stuff. You don't always get to talk to the biggest artists in the world, but you still get a chance to talk to guys. And if you catch them at certain times, like towards the end of the show, not the very end of the show, because look, guys have been there all day. They're trying to get out of there just like you're trying to get out of there. But you can sit for a minute and discuss techniques. Actually, I got to have an interesting conversation with one of my new favorite artists, Sarah Pacelli. That's now starting to borderline on stalkerish. I'm sorry, Sarah. It's not my fault. It's just how I roll. I just want you to talk to me, and maybe hold me, and maybe draw pretty pictures. Don't hate me. Awkward silence. But again, I got to have a nice conversation with her about tools of her trade and things she uses in her craft, from red pencils to non-photo blue pencils. Marcio Takara, who's from Brazil, I got to have a pretty interesting conversation about Brazil and my quest to be there. Last year, I actually had a fantastic conversation with Oliver Coipel. And it's pretty funny because I have this stupid House of M sketchbook, but I love Oliver Coipel, by the way. And he was there, and I have this sketchbook, and everybody's pulling out all these wonderfully maintained books, and they're having them sign them and getting CGC cards for them. And I pull out this ratty old House of M sketchbook that Marvel did, and this thing's awful. And I hand it to him, and he's like, "Whoa, what's this?" And I go, I just wanted you to sign this because you're actually one of my favorite artists, and this book has actually traveled with me all over the world. If I go anywhere, I always bring a copy of House of M, and I always bring this sketchbook just to look at when I'm on the plane. And it has been everywhere in the world except Africa. It's been to Europe, it's been to Asia, it's been to South America, it's been to Central America, it's been to the Caribbean. And he looks at me and laughs, and we start talking about just traveling. And then he signs it, and he signs it on it. He goes, "Hopefully you make it to Africa sometime soon, Oliver Coipel." And it was fantastic. You get those opportunities there. So I just wanted to sort of show off my swag. This is sort of, if you look right there, I've got a stack of comics, and that is probably, I don't know, I'd say a third of what I bought comic-wise. Mostly what I bought was art, but again, that's due to the awesomeness of Artist Alley. That's about all I got right now for my swag and for Wonder Woman prints that look really cool framed. Again, thank you, Cliff Chang, Thank you for always talking to me.